So next up, let's look at the various options for setting up your game. Now, it should be noted that if you're watching this further down the line, it's possible this has changed a little bit, but the basic core premises will remain the same. So just keep that in mind. First of all, we'll talk about the various official bits and pieces. That is the various expansions for the game, different ways of playing the game. If you want to play any of those, you can definitely do that. So if you want to play the Rise of X expansion, you can click this one. If you want to play the Immortality expansion, click this one. There's this Go to 11 option, which is going to be pre-selected. And what this is referring to is a way of playing the game for players. But taking off this additional point that normally players start with and usually do with the Rise of X. This comes from a suggestion from the actual manual, as you can see here, the Go to 11 section here, basically suggesting that with Immortality you might want to play a longer game, partially because there's more points available, so without that you're going to have very, very quick games. And as we've always sort of mentioned and joked, for those groups, and especially veteran and tournament players, which has got to be a nod, and we do appreciate that, Mr. Denon. So yeah, if you want to play with that, you can. If you don't, deactivate it. It's totally up to you. There's also the Epic mode, which is an alternate way to play the game. You can click that to activate that as well, if you so desire. And then we've got a few other options as well. There is Blitz mode. This is a homebrew version of playing the game. There is a short rule manual of how to play it here. It just basically just speeds up the game, lets you start with extra bits and pieces, and you rock and roll. If you want to play that, you can do. There is a mode for clocks. What this does is just spawns some clock timers around the board here. It's all automated. You don't have to worry about any of it, particularly if you don't want to, and is far from mandatory by any stretch. But you'll see some people will play games with clocks with a X amount of time limit. So if you want to activate that, that's how you do that there. There's a tournament tab here as well, which is currently used for a couple of reasons. For the ranked games will be played via here, and has a red go first option, which will need to be clicked currently, as that is part of the rules. We also use this for competitions as well, as this allows you to enter a code specific to the game, and when we run competitions, we end up using the particular codes that are given in order to feed the information into an automatic table, so it just cuts down on a ton of the manpower. So that's all done there as well. Do note that that immediately does immediately unclicks Immortality, so you just need to re-click that. There's also a scoreboard. This can be usable if you're the black viewer. This will generate a scoreboard little tab up towards the top right of the screen to allow you to track it. This is basically used for broadcasting games, myself, CJ, other ones, just so that's all done automatically, so we don't have to do it in post, and saves an absolute bucket of time. And there's also the black market as well. This is another homebrew version of the game, which basically, in addition to the original Imperium row, will also spawn an additional sort of mini row that players can actually purchase cards from, and it cycles through automatically. It's an interesting variant of the mod, and maybe something to mess around with one day. Last and by no means least is this tab here, the Hidden Picks section. So this is the current standard of drafting for leaders that is used currently on TTS Club. When this game was designed by Paul Denon, and he created it, and obviously you've got all the various information of how to set up the game, how to play it, and all that lovely good stuff. If you look into the setup here, and specifically section D here, when it talks about how to choose your leaders, and it is simply, each player takes a leader and places it in front of them. That's it. There's no other guidance whatever. Paul Denon basically did this in intention so that play groups would figure out their own way that they would prefer to do drafting, whether everyone just takes a random card, everyone just shuffles randomly, whatever you want to do. So after a lot of testing, we ended up coming up with the Hidden Picks system. And what this does is that, let's say that the first player ends up being the red player here. What this does is it causes a reverse draft, i.e. player 4 picks the leader first and you go backwards in turn order, but also out of these original 14 leaders, 6 are removed randomly, and the remaining 8 are then picked in secret. Oh, I can't do that. I thought it was the backside to them. Oh, well. Anyways, but the idea is so that a player will then pick whatever leader it is that they want to play as in that position. And this is kept secret. No one else knows who anyone has picked. So when it comes to yellow, and this is all done by scripting, yellow will simply just see something like this. They won't have any idea who blue's chosen, nor they have any idea of the leaders that were randomly removed. They've just got to take it. This was done in an effort to kind of protect player 4, as we found an issue was occurring was if player 4 would pick a particular leader, it was very easy for player 3 to see that and then simply counterpick someone to get in their way, and it was becoming a bit of a nuisance. So protecting that has helped player 4 a little bit at least. So next up, we'll talk about some of the scripting that is part of the mod. I've talked a little bit about it, about how the tech boards work, but particularly you'll notice as you look at the board that there are buttons absolutely everywhere for pretty much every single space that you can see, for your garrisons as well, negotiators, text, all sorts of bits and pieces. As mentioned earlier, please try to use them as you play through the various bits of the game, as it will create not only a log here. So here's the shipping, for example. It will create a log of what you've done, and it will also give you the relevant rewards from it as well. So you see here, you get hold of the slurry immediately. But if I was to go, say, to Savfk, you get not only the troop, but you also get hold of the intrigue as well. It gets immediately dealt for you from the top of the deck, so you don't have to worry about any of that. There is also an option as well. If you go to a space that lets you draw cards from your deck, for example. Let's get that out of the way. And obviously that will just go ahead and do that. But what will happen is, let's say I draw the, let's say that's my deck here for this round here, and that's what I've got. And I go ahead and draw from Arakeen, but the draw pile doesn't have enough cards. You'll get this little prompt here, and it will normally come up where it will come up with a little text box saying, do you want to draw your next card or not? And the game will kind of show that, because you don't have to draw necessarily immediately. You might want to do other stuff first, so just bear that in mind. It's also the same for faction spaces as well. So let's say I'm playing Duke Leon on a side that's, ooh, this is a decent little conflict here. Get hold of some spice and influence. I want a piece of that. Well, let's go ahead and do so. We can take our agent, say, to Hardy Warriors, and we can pay and get. And again, this creates a log into the text box here. It gives us the troops. It also minuses our resources. If at any point you don't have enough resources in order to actually pay for a space, it will tell you don't have enough water. Also, additionally, if you say you don't have enough influence to access an area like, say, Siege Tabor or instead of shipping, the game will also not let you do it, and it will tell you don't have the reputation to get there, which is really damn useful. And again, we can just take those troops here, get them involved here. Beautiful. I'll talk a bit more about short keys of how to operate stuff later on in the video. As standard, all bumps from the faction visits are also automatically given to you, even if there's occasions where you want to do something in order, because technically, once you go to a space and you pay its cost, you don't have to take the bump immediately, which is actually relevant for Leto in his diplomacy ring, because that lets you chase. So just bear in mind, it's a very rare technicality, just keep an eye out for it. But it also counts as well, so say if I was to play as Tezzy here and get hold of my second bump here with the Spacing Guild, obviously I get hold of the fold space and the bump, but I also get the point given to me immediately here, which also gives the point here immediately as well. It's the same as well for alliances. These are also automatically given across, as are the various rewards for hitting the thought space. All are automatically given, so you don't ever need to pull these out yourself. Now, while most things in the mod have some degree of automation to them, not exactly everything does. A couple things you've got to be tricky of, especially the research board and as well as the negotiators board here as well. There's some degree of automation, but not as much. We'll talk about the negotiators first. It's probably the easiest one. So if I decide that I want to go ahead and go, say, tech negotiation here, for example, for the extra reveal, there's a reward here for either getting a tech for cheaper or getting a negotiator for a later purchase. If you want to do that, they are negotiator spots, which, yes, they are spelled CIA. It's a typo, don't worry about that. And you can go ahead and add these and get rid of them as you so see fit, but you'll need to do that as manual tracking. Or, of course, you can just go ahead and take the tech that you're after, put it on your board, and go ahead and add the stuff. Bear in mind, the artillery here is a reveal turn edition, and reveal effects for your cards are not done automatically. All of that must be done manually. So be careful when you're counting swords for artillery. You've got to count them manually. We'll talk about it in a moment. The research board can be a little tricky at first, and it is also easy to forget about it sometimes, and take actions with elite research. You just honestly just completely forget to do them. So if you've got these experimentation cards, let's say I go ahead and mine down here at Hager Basin, want to get some early spies, put a couple of troops in, that's all lovely good, and we come up to the research. So we are allowed one progression along this track from left to right. Again, everything is nicely marked out, which is really useful, and simply what you got to do is, as you're advancing, either click up or click down on the relevant arrow to take that path. At the start, obviously, it's very simple. You just go ahead, you get your specimen for the track. But here, obviously, then you've got to start making decisions. You want to go up or down. If at any point you do something, but you're like, actually, no, that's not what I want to do, and it doesn't give you, like, say, an intrigue card or anything like this, what you can do, so say I click up accidentally, but I'm actually, oh no, I want to get hold of the beetle to advance this track. There's two little red arrows on the right, on the left of these tracks, and you can back them up. You're not meant to be able to do this, by the way, so just be careful. And when you do go back, you will need to manually get rid of any rewards that you have taken. And then take the right path. So don't rely on this as a crutch by any stretch of imagination, but in an emergency, it can be done. Reveal turns are also pretty easy and straightforward. Once you're ready to reveal, you just simply click the reveal turn button here. The rest of your hand will be laid out in this large box, and then you just simply have to resolve everything here manually. Nothing is scripted for revealing, so if you get hold of any specimens, you'll need to add those manually, and of course you'll have your various resources for either getting hold of stuff like spice or sly or whatever else, as well as persuasion, looking to buy cards from the Imperium row, and you just simply grab them. They'll be added to the discard pile for you to cycle around, unless you got a tech otherwise that lets you do something special, in which case a prompt box will come out for that. All pretty straightforward, nice and easy. Everyone is super happy. You can also, as well, when you reveal, or any point on your turn, with Immortality, there is this Atomics button, so if you decide that you don't like the Imperium row for whatever reason, you can go ahead and get rid of that. That will cycle those up into this little pile up here, and new cards will be produced for you to maybe look to purchase some cards from. Could be useful. Swords, again, that are claimed via revealing. This is all done automatically. Not automatically, it's manually as well, so you must apply all of that manually. And be careful that if troop numbers change, so let's say, for example, I have a card that lets me retreat troops once the combat has started, you'll need to manually change this as well. And again, if I was to say add a troop in for whatever reason, I've then got to reapply the sword. So just keep an eye out for that. And lastly, once everyone's resolved their combat and everyone's taken their rewards, just click the Maker's Recall button, and this will script absolutely everything for you. Full cleanup of the board, replacement of agents, adding spice where necessary, does everything for you. Next combat, turn shuffles around, turns get reset, and you're ready to rock on as well. A process that would normally take several minutes is just done in seconds. Absolutely awesome stuff.